Welcome to Firsts in Fiction, your first stop for learning to write fantastic fiction. I'm your host, Aaron Gansky, author of The Bargain, the Hand of Adonai series, and Firsts in Fiction.
And I'm Alden Gansky, the author of a bunch of books, mostly novels, and some nonfiction.
And I'm Molly Jo Reilly. I'm producer of the podcast and writer of the Unemployment Cookbook, and currently working on the work in progress, NOLA.
And I look forward to the day when I can just say that I've written a bunch of things, mostly novels and some nonfiction. That seems a lot more concise, a lot quicker than trying to list everything out, but at least my list is short enough to where it doesn't take the entire podcast. So
well, it always sounds like I'm bragging. Well, I'm the author of 45 books, probably 46 now. If you count some of the novellas, so it just sounds too horn-tootish for me.
Well, we'll have you list them all one day, and just that'll be our entire broadcast. It's just today Al reads his list of published works.
I'm gonna have to get a list out then because I don't think I remember half of them.
Then,
I'm old. I get even older this week. So
then in 2012, I put out a couple books. And, you need
did a co-authoring job with Moses once, and then
yeah, he signed my
writing
yearbook.
in Hebrew is tough. That's
Yeah, he signed my yearbook. He's a good guy. So, well, let's jump into it tonight. I got to give my reminder to those of you who are listening to the audio-only broadcast. You can watch us live, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on each Tuesday evening. 6:30 is kind of a loose starting time. It's usually 6:32, 6:33, but it's, we're West Coasters. It's like, whatever. We're close to LA, so whatever, right? It's fine.
Yeah, something like that. Sure, why not?
Yeah, so about 6:30 p.m. is when we usually begin. Our Ask the Author question tonight comes from Tess DeGroot, who's been a faithful listener for almost, maybe not from the beginning, but for the last year or two. She's been pretty consistent, and glad to have her. She always does our fact-finding for us. Whenever we quote something, she finds out who actually said it.
She's sometimes pretty darn quick good about that.
She is. Sometimes she makes us look good, and sometimes she just says, no, you embarrassed yourself. So either way, the truth is more important than our pride. So happy to have her listening. And she asks...
Speak for yourself. I mean, thank you, Tess. Yes, thanks.
She's actually done some more research for us, too. So she's kind of floating around behind the scenes helping us out. So we do appreciate her. And she asks a question predominantly for me because it has to do with the Hand of Adonai series, but I kind of opened it up to Pops and Molly to give their viewpoint as well. And her question is, as an intuitive writer, how do you handle world building like you did for Hand of Adonai? She's an outliner, and she finds it's more work than she thought it would be to lay out the rules for her fictional world. And Tess, I'm not sure if you listen to Writing Excuses at all or not, but it may be worth your time to listen to that podcast. Brandon Sanderson is one of the predominant fantasy writers of our time, and he hosts the podcast with quite a few friends of his, all very well published. So they've got some great things to say, especially about world building and rules for magic systems and all those types of things. And so you can find more specific information there. You can listen to the podcasts we've done on world building in the past. But in context of what I did with Hand of Adonai, I've got to admit I was really green going into Hand of Adonai. I had not read hardly any fantasy. I definitely hadn't written any fantasy. I am a discovery writer, and I'll probably be a discovery writer until I'm dead, which hatches its own types of problems. So what I did was I just started, as I do with pretty much any project. I started with the idea and with some characters, and I started writing, and I went through several revisions. But as I wrote, anytime I wrote something that had to do with the flora or the fauna or the motivation of the characters or the cities or what city's major source of income was, those types of things, whenever something came up that seemed important to me that I would probably be coming back to, I would write it down in what we call a story Bible. And that's just simply a different document that you can go to for reference. So if I have in one scene somebody healing somebody with the leaf of a triseca tree, when I came back in book 2 and somebody needed to be healed, I made sure there were some leaves from the tricycad tree around, those types of things. And so I would keep a list of that. Now, the problem with writing a series is that, especially as a discovery writer, and this gets really tough, because if you make a change in book 3, obviously it's going to have ripple effects in book 2 and book 1, and so you have to go back. And there was a lot of revision on my part. It's one reason why the series has taken so long, because I've had to go back through, and when I change something important in book 3, I have to go back through and make sure that I've set it up in book 1, set it up in book 2, etc. But long story short, now that I've taken 22 minutes to answer this question, the story Bible is what I've done. And when an idea hit me and I knew it was a good idea and I liked it, I just ran with it, and I kept a copy of it so that I could refer to it later. Interestingly enough, as I work my way into the latter parts of the books, I'm doing a lot more outlining to try and save myself the time. I hope those the kind of answers the question that you're looking for. How about you, Pops?
Well, when you talk about a Bible, and usually we use a small b for that, Bible simply means book. Let me tell you more than you want to know. It comes from an ancient city called Byblos, hence the word Bible. And they made papyrus there, and so that's how the name Bible came about. But that's not unusual, especially in television. When there's a series on television, they have a series Bible. So if you watch The Big Bang, for example, they usually keep track of everything. Otherwise, you end up with embarrassing moments, and almost every series I've watched will have one of those. And there are people who keep track of that and let you know. What I would say to Tess is this, that the important thing is to avoid getting caught up in the difference between being an intuitive writer or an outliner. Being an outliner can mean many things. You might outline your whole world that you're creating, but not much of the action. Or you might outline all the action and kind of discover, and that's, you're calling intuitive writing discovery writing, which is a great term for it. When you're discovering as you go along, you just you add those things. So no two writers are going to be the same in this, but don't get caught up in that. Every outliner will become intuitive when they get into the composition stage, unless they have a 50-page outline or something like that. But most know to be flexible enough to say, well, I'm going to make this change here. Intuitive writers, discovery writers, as they get into the composition side, will often become outliners because they're trying to figure out what's going to happen next, and so they may outline the next few scenes, though they don't outline the whole book. So I call it piecemeal outlining, and I've done that many, many times. I've also done the full-blown outlines. Really, all fiction is about discovery. So whether you discover it in an outline stage or if you discover it intuitively, working your way through, it doesn't really matter. It's all discovery for every kind of writer, and that does require that no matter what you do, you need to keep track of things in a book. And I've used everything from PowerPoint. The book I'm working on now, I'm doing keeping all my notes in OneNote because I can see it on my iPhone, I can see it on my laptop, I can see it on iPads. So it doesn't matter where I am, I can always jot down another note or something like that. So OneNote works with Microsoft and also works with Mac computers. So the real key is to keep things in mind, keep track of them, but be open all the time for something to enter into your thinking that you hadn't seen before, and especially like in descriptions of settings and stuff like that. And so let your subconscious work also.
Absolutely. How about you, Molly?
I agree with you. Both. I have a story Bible also and a notebook. I keep mostly a lot of Post-it notes just stacked on top of each other with ideas. I'm also an intuitive writer, and it has been hard for me. I understand where Tess is coming from. When you get a location in your mind, all of a sudden you just want to write the story, but now you have to find that little bit of research. I just really am a strong advocate of the story Bible. Not only that, but also as a creative person, for me it sort of is a scrapbook of the journey of the writing process. So it's going to be something to hold on to after for, people who like to scrapbook. Not that that's, a way to write, but it's kind of helpful. It's fun. I would definitely say, as a discovery writer, the story does write itself, but that doesn't change the setting or who the characters are. I have characters that listen to music or wear clothes that don't appeal to me at all, but I need to know that about them. That's who they are. So I want to make sure that I keep those notes. My stories are set in actual locations, like currently working in New Orleans. Tess is actually creating an entire little town, an entire area, so I can see why that'd be a little more difficult. But take a regular town and rename it. Use something that you already know. You don't have to create it from dirt. You know, you can start with something that you know and just change it a little bit to make it your own. That's what I would recommend.
And just to make sure those who are new to writing, because we never know quite who's going to be listening and stuff, when we say intuitive writer, usually the phrase it's intuitive or discovery writer, these are people who normally don't outline. Some people like to call them seat of the pants writer. I'm really against that because there's nothing seat of the pants about it. It's just what you do at any particular moment. And, of course, outliners outline. So I just want to make sure we all have the terms clear.
I've often heard discovery writing, intuitive writing likened to driving at night with your headlights on. You can't see all the way to your destination, but you can see far enough to get yourself there. So even though there's no outline per se, you generally know where you're going from scene to scene. You have a vague idea of how to get there, but you may not have mapped it out. And you're also a lot more willing to take shortcuts and be a little more adventurous with that, or to take the scenic route, as some might say. So those are some of the differences. I know a lot of people who probably would never finish a book if they didn't outline it first, and I know a lot of people who outline books and never finish them. So you really have to find some balance that works for you. But that is a topic that I feel like we've already covered perhaps last year. So you can check out our archives and look for our outline episode. We talk about that. Tonight we're doing something a little bit fun. We are talking about social media for the antisocial, and Molly Jo's going to be taking the lead on this one because she knows more than my dad and I combined on the subject. She's good at it, and some of us just pay her to do our social media for us.
So when you say that, Aaron, that tonight is fun, are you saying everything else we've done hasn't been fun?
Well, I wasn't saying that at all. I was implying it.
Oh,
so
silly.
But yeah, it's a subtle difference.
What I inferred.
It's a subtle difference. So, but before we jump into the nitty-gritty about how to do social media, it's important for us to know why we need to social media and what that means in context of marketing ourselves as writers, and why is it important why are we taking an entire episode to even talk about this? So, Pops, you've put together some bullet points here about social media and why it's important for us to know as writers.
Just a few things. I'm big about setting the stage so we're all on the same platform as we start our journey here. So to set the stage, the first thing we need to understand is this digital shift that we've lived through. We're so used to change happening all around us all the time, we no longer think about it. But we are the first generation of writers to use social media like this. Now, Mark Twain piloted a few things. He did a lot of public speaking, and he's the one that tied public speaking to his writing, so that he could continue to make money and to sell books and things like that. But really, there was no social media until just a few years ago. Twitter came about in 2006, so that's a decade. Facebook a little bit further back, 2004. Google Plus, which we're using when we use Hangouts, that's 2011. So that's 5 years ago, half a decade ago. Instagram, 2010. YouTube, and so the video portion of this podcast is going to be on YouTube. That came about 10 years ago, 2005. And blogging, as we understand it today, did begin a little bit earlier in the late 1990s, but as the bulletin boards. But as we use it today, it didn't really hit its stride till about 2004. So now there's, depending who's doing the counting, 150 million public blogs, which is just amazing. How many of them are still in use, I don't know, but there's about 150 million public blogs. It could be more because some of the blogging platforms don't give out statistics. So, now, okay, that's one thing. So we're the first generation to use it, so we're still all in a learning process. So is the publishers. They're getting it down pretty good now, but we're still learning a lot of things, and it's changing all the time. Second thing to understand when we think about social media as authors is how publishing has changed. With digital marketing, that led to some more social media kind of stuff, but our books are being published electronically now, print on demand, all those sorts of things have all happened in last decade or so. And here's the big thing that we need to understand. This is where social media becomes important, and Molly's going to take us through and show us some more reasons why these are important. And that is, the publishers have changed. It is more likely than ever before that when some publisher, some acquisitions editor, you submit your material, looks at your stuff, the first thing they're going to look at is your platform. Wasn't that long ago that wasn't even a term for authors. Publishers did this work, not authors. But now the shift has been, well, we'll put all of this onto the author and let them do the marketing and the promotion until you hit it, and this is the great irony, until you hit it big. Once you become a huge bestseller, they do all the marketing for you. So it's just one of the ironies of the publishing industry. And to me, that's the day the music died in publishing, when they started thinking that way. And so it makes no sense to me that a publisher would ask the author who has no marketing experience, no advertising experience, no experience promoting books, to become the chief marketer. It's like asking somebody who's a janitor or your house painter to come in and do some editing for you. It's not what they're trained to do. Yet the burden has been pushed off onto authors, and it's led to some huge mistakes and the ending of some careers and some very poor sales. So I have some pretty strong opinions about it. That could be another topic for another time. But the bottom line is this: today authors need to know how to promote themselves, and the cheapest way is through social media.
And I'm going to jump in here real quick. Pops, you mentioned a lot of really good things, and I agree with you. It is the expectation of publishers that you market yourself. And if your books are not marketable, if they're not selling, a lot of times that's going to come back on you. If your book doesn't sell, then you didn't do something right, and that's a lot of pressure to put on an author. And so the expectation is from publishers. The expectation is that you're active on social media and that you already have a following. Publishers are trying to minimize their risk. They want to know that if they publish your book, it's going to sell copies. And so a lot of times that has little to do with how good your book is and more how many people are actually going to buy it. How many people can you convince to buy it? And so they're going to look at your followers, and they're going to look at those types of things. And I've had these conversations with publishers. I'm not sure if I've answered them properly or not, but that's a topic for something, a different week. So just understand that is, as a writer, it's now the expectation that you're doing these things. And even if you haven't published something, you want to start to develop your platform, as we say, now. You want to develop your social media presence now. So when you go to a publisher and you say, I've got 1,000 followers on Twitter and 2,000 friends on Facebook, or whatever the case may be, to them that says this might be a safe bet because this person has friends and family that are going to buy his book even if it sucks. And so we're going to recoup what we're investing in it. And that's really what they're looking at is they're crunching numbers. And I agree with you, Pops. I still think that publishing should be about the quality of the work and not necessarily the quality of somebody's ability on social media.
I have, for years, been involved in writers' conferences and directed a conference for 6 years, and I've been going to that one for like 15 years or something. And I've watched the change over time where agents would say, tell me about your story. That'd be the first question. The second, what's happened now is the second phase of that. The first thing you're most likely to hear from an acquisitions editor or an agent is, tell me about your platform. And I'm of the mind that it's really damaged publishing. I think it was just really a bad idea. No one's asked my opinion of it. But hey, I'm here tonight, so.
This is our platform, and we're going to use it to, this is our soapbox, and so there you go. You get that with it. Our 2 cents, and I think you've gotten our 2 cents, and that's worth 4 cents. So now let's get Molly Joe's and make it worth 6 cents. The 6th sense.
All right.
Yeah, let
nice
that go.
Connection. I like that. Great. Fantastic.
This is what happens.
Very spooky, very mystery-like.
Yeah, been a long week. I apologize. So
you're always apologizing. It's okay.
I am. I'm used to it now. I'm very used to saying. I've had people tell me that I apologize too much, and I immediately apologize for apologizing too much. That's a true story. Moving on.
My daughter does the exact same thing, and then she apologizes for apologizing for apologizing.
Well, we are
You
kindred
just can't
spirits.
stop the cycle.
Well, I'm sorry that you have to go through that. Now,
Okay, thanks.
on to moving on. Here we go, Molly Jo. So Pop's mentioned quite a few platforms, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Pinterest, Instagram, all of
Hmm.
those. That's a lot. Do we
Yeah.
really have to be active on all of those? Are there just two or three that we need to be that we need to concern ourselves with? What's going to give us the most bang for our buck here?
First, before we get into that, I do want to reiterate what you said, which is you have to start building your platform now. Because if, as a writer, they're not going to wait until your book is published and then you start building your following. You want to start building, I call it a swarm. Other people call it tribes, your followers, whatever. You want to start building your swarm so that the people will start following you and they'll generate their own excitement and they'll bring new people to the swarm. They'll say, hey, Molly Jo is working on this great book. She shared a 2-paragraph excerpt from it and it's going really well. I can't wait to read it. This is something you might be interested in. They're going to start building and disseminating. So the next thing you know, instead of 200 followers on Facebook, you're going to have 500 followers. And each of those 500 followers, if you ask nicely, may end up telling 2 or 3 more people, and it's going to grow and grow. You want to keep that. That's the part of the social aspect of it. So the platforms that you really want to use are Facebook and Twitter. Those are the ones you're going to find 100% of your audience. They won't all be on Facebook or all be on Twitter, but together that's where your audience is. They either have one or the other. Most people have both. If you're on Pinterest, most people are also on Facebook because they like sharing their pins and saying, hey, look what I found and here's this neat article. Now we're finding that there's also a lot of people on Instagram because the photos are so much easier than taking 5 minutes to type out a paragraph or something. A quick little hashtag and a caption and you've got a visual attention grabber right there. It can be a book cover, it can be a scene, it could be something that reminds you of one of your characters, it could be none of the above, it could be what you ate for breakfast this morning while you were thinking about writing your book tomorrow when you get in the car. There's a whole lot of ways to gather that, but Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are the top 3, and Pinterest, not necessarily a social media platform, although more and more it is turning into, I hate to use the word marketing, but that's what people are using it for. Again, for clippings, Pinterest is basically an online bulletin board where you pull pictures and you pin them and you do a bunch of different things, and you can build boards around your themes. I have a New Orleans theme where I clip everything from homes and designs and New Orleans articles and stories, anything of that nature. The food, oh my goodness, the food. So you want to just keep all of that going.
The food, we want to keep the food going.
Oh yeah,
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 absolutely.
yeah.
Get those good butter
I think
beans,
somebody really,
jambalaya.
really needs to get me a ticket so I can go visit New Orleans. So visit New Orleans. If you're listening to this tonight, please send me to New Orleans.
We start raising funds for Nolans.
The Visit New Orleans Tourism Board has been so helpful, and that is through social media. I found them on Twitter. They are the tourism board of New Orleans, and they have actually been very helpful the last 2 years in writing my book. I tweet them a question, and how would I do this, or what is that, and they're very fast, within usually 5 to 10 minutes, and sometimes within 1 minute, they will text me links or send me links for the information I'm looking for, whether it be what kind of food is this, what's the weather like in October, or what does this word mean in New Orleans. It's incredibly helpful, and that's another social media aspect that I really love the social media because it's almost instantaneous. You don't have to order a book and wait 3 weeks for it to arrive on your doorstep to do the research. You can pull up Google Maps, you can tweet somebody, you can send a question out on Facebook, and it's instantaneous when you get the responses that you need. So,
Very awesome.
yeah. So yeah, the Facebook and the Twitter are great. That's where you're going to find most of your audience. The others are fun, and they'll build to your platform, but you really want to establish with Facebook and Twitter. And in particular with Facebook, I recommend having at least 2 pages. One is going to be your personal profile where you interact with your family and your friends, and you get the group all excited, and then build your public author page. That's going to be the one where you're going to basically do a little marketing as well, but you're going to keep your private stuff off of that, and you're not going to friend the strangers on your personal page. So that way you have a healthy balance of private versus public marketing. And a lot of stuff will go on both pages, but overall you can at least separate. As public as I am with so much that I do, there's a lot of stuff I don't want people who don't know me, I don't want or need them to know. Like, if I'm having a bad day, if I'm not feeling good, I don't necessarily want to put that out publicly. But there's also, I don't want to spam my friends over and over with marketing. So you want to have the 2 pages so you can kind of differentiate between the 2.
All right, so we set these up, Molly. For example, a blog or something, or Facebook. How often should we be posting?
At least 2 to 3 times a week if it's a blog. A stagnant website is more harmful than not having any website whatsoever. If you're at altongansky.com, if you did not post there for 6 months and somebody were to go looking for if I were to go looking for your books and I see that your website has not been updated for 6 months, I really wouldn't care, because I would think you're not putting forth that much effort to promote yourself. So there's a stigma that goes with not promoting yourself. Again, unfortunately, it's because the publishers are making us promote ourselves or have someone do it for us. If you've written a book, you should have the pride and the excitement of saying, hey, I wrote this book, I'm really excited about it, let's put it up and see whatever attention we can get. Post little blog posts that relate to it or something. But generally, you just also want to keep that interaction going so people don't forget about you. That's the whole idea behind social media, is to keep yourself front and center. So post at least 2 to 3 times a week, even in a blog post as short as 200 to 300 words. Mine tend to go 600 to 800 words, but I post 2 3 times a week. I'll write them all on a Sunday, and then I schedule them to post later. So you can schedule, and that's something we'll talk about later too, is scheduling software that you can use. So you don't have to keep doing it. You can do it all at once and then schedule it out. There's also the 80-20 rule, which is, or 6-to-1 rule. If you are going to post on social media, on Facebook or Twitter, you want to get people's attentions. You don't want to be a seller. You don't want to be the marketer where the only thing they think of you as, there's Al, there's Aaron, there's Molly, and they're just trying to sell me something. They're going to stop paying attention to your posts. So you want to keep stuff that's going to bring in their attention. Post 6 or 7 items about you, your life, your daily life, a cute photo of a bird flying by eating a worm, whatever it is. It doesn't even have to do with writing. But then you'll hit that one magic post that says, hey guys, thanks for hanging around. I could use your help. Could you write a review for me? Or did you know that my book is now on Kindle for 99 cents today only? That sort of thing. If you're going to market, make sure it's only about 20% of the time. The rest of it is the actual social aspect of the social media.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the 6-to-1 rule. I know what the Pareto principle is, the 80-20. 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. 80% of the profit comes from 20% of the product that's sold. That sort of thing. Is the 6-to-1 rule supposed to be the same thing as the Pareto principle, the 80-20? Yeah,
that's where you're gonna want to put more work into, not work, but you're gonna want to put more social aspect into it. And if you, for every 6 posts that you put out, you want to have only 1 marketing post.
Okay,
so,
I see. Thank you.
1 out of 6 is going to be where you're asking people to buy stuff or write a review, and the other 5 is going to be, hey, it was a great day today, or, you know, how are you guys doing? But you want to also make it interactive. You want to ask a lot of questions, put up polls, cute little fun memes. I know, Aaron, when we do your social media, the stuff that gets the most attraction on your Facebook page is anything that has to do with Star Wars. Mm-hmm. If it's Star Wars, I mean, I may as well not have written, or you shouldn't have posted anything else the rest of the week. It doesn't even count. Mm-hmm. So find the connection that works for your audience. For me, it's stuff about frogs, it's stuff about New Orleans, it's stuff about food. If I can post any of those 3 things in a day, then I know that my audience is going to interact with that. They're going to leave comments, they're going to leave other photos, questions, that sort of thing.
One of the things that we've done, and this is really great, by the way, because one of my questions was what types of posts work best, and you've kind of hit on that it can't all be marketing, because, like you say, that really turns people off. I've actually unfriended people because of that. Like, 6, 7 posts a day about their new book that blah blah blah, how to market yourself, and it's just it's tiring, is what it is. And so I've actually stopped following people on Twitter and unfriended people on Facebook for that reason. But what we were talking about, some of these memes about Star Wars, take some of your interests that don't have to do with your writing, because I think, Molly, what we've done, especially with Twitter, is, and you're good about this, because I'm so terrible about this, posting pictures of Magic cards that we like. Or when you come up and we play Magic the Gathering, you'll hang on, I'm not going to take my turn yet. I'm going to take some pictures and put them on Facebook, and I'm going to tag, hashtag MTG. I've gotten so many followers from that, and retweets from that, and new followers from people retweeting stuff, and it all has to do with Magic, and I'm a Magic judge, and I'm involved in the Magic community, and so now when I'm talking about Magic with people on Facebook or whatever, I can go to the groups that I'm involved in and be like, hey, it was great to see you last Saturday at this, GPT. Had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me out. By the way, my book is on sale. We talked about it. If you're interested, you can find it here, whatever. So you make a personal connection, kind of that social connection, especially if you're in person. That's great if you're at these types of events, and if you're not, just whatever it is that you're interested in, whatever movies or books, or push somebody else's books. Hey, I just read this book. It's really good. And do it that way. I think that's where I've found the most success, or rather, the biggest payout from the work that you've been doing is from finding common ground that doesn't have to do with my writing, so that when I do talk about my writing, people go, oh, that's the Magic judge. He's a nice guy. I'll take a look at that. So
exactly. A lot of people, they think, they put up a kind of emotional barrier because, oh, you're a writer and I'm not. So they think they can't relate. You want to find that common ground that takes the writing out of the equation, and then all of a sudden you're not selling yourself as a writer, you're selling a great story that you wrote that you happen to have a print copy of, and it shifts gears and it shifts their mentality. And yeah, you know what, you've talked to me about Magic, you've talked to me about this, and you're a judge and all this stuff. So now, hey, I've talked with you, you are intelligent, I want to know what you have to say. Let me see this story that you happen to have in print. And it's a different mentality as opposed to, oh, you're a writer and you wrote a book that you're trying to get me to sell. Now it's, I want to know how you think, what you write, what you do. And it is that personal connection. So.
Absolutely. So we did get a good question here from the chat room. Bruce writes in it, and this is, I think, a question that a lot of people have, because a lot of the thread on the page is great. Bruce asks a question, and there's 12 people. Oh,
I'm going to interrupt real quick and just say that I'm seeing the chat room going down, and this is the first time that I'm unable to track with the chat and be in the podcast at the same time. So if I miss any questions, I'm sorry. You guys are going to have to keep me on track tonight.
Well, we're going to do that, and I think this might be a good time to kind of take a quick little detour, because we're talking about how to social media. I just made that a verb.
How to do social media.
I liked it better my way. Anyhow, if you're going to do all this work, you're going to put in all the time and energy and effort, why not just self-publish? Is that the way to go? Do we even need a publisher at this point if we're going to be doing all the marketing ourselves? I'm actually going to throw that over to you, Pops, and let you give your opinion, and then back over to Molly and see what she says, and I'll kind of give my opinion real quick.
Well, I'm getting old. I've been practicing being cranky. I've been yelling at the kids to get off my lawn, even if they're not on the lawn.
Practicing a lot lately, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm practicing quite a bit about being, grumpy and stuff. It's, I've lived long enough to be able to do that. It's a very good question, and I'm going to preface this by saying I know a great many professional writers, some of them bestsellers. They've been published traditionally through legacy publishers, as we sometimes say, that is, established publishers have been around for a while, who give all that up to publish themselves. And part of the logic is this. I remember earlier I mentioned that things had shifted. In fact, in my career, I've seen that shift. And what some of these other authors are saying is, no, wait a second. If I'm going to have to do all the marketing, and I'm going to have to do all the social media, and if I'm going to have to do all these other things, then why do I need the publisher? And it used to be you needed the publisher to get into bookstores, but there are fewer and fewer bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of them are now thinking, I make more money per unit if I self-publish than I do if I get a traditional royalty, which in the general market is roughly 10% of the cover price, and then if you're in the CBA, the Christian Booksellers Association, it's much less than that. So some are saying I can make more money even though I sell fewer books, and I have full control. So if I have to do all of this stuff and pre-edit and do all of these things, then what do I need the publisher for? And they become publishing entrepreneurs, and they publish their own stuff, and a great many of them do quite well at it, and then sometimes somebody will come by and pay big bucks for it, like The Martian that became the movie. It was a New York Times bestseller list for a long time, and then it became a movie, and I kept it up there, and he was publishing a lot of that online. Putting it on his blog and do a chapter here and a chapter there, and he got so many people interested in it that it really took off, and he was offered a contract that helped him place it. So I'm not ready to sink the good ship publishing yet. I like publishers, traditional publishers. I think they do a great work. They've helped change the world. But during this time where we're on this hump of trying to figure out what's going on, I would say that for some people, if you're serious about it, self-publishing might be the way to go, no matter what. It might make more money for you, but I still, even though I self-publish my out-of-print books and I self-publish some new material, I still want to be published by a regular publisher. So part of that, I don't know if that's pride or what, sense of accomplishment, but I don't know if that answers the question or not. Get off my lawn.
What about you, Molly? What do you think?
I've only ever self-published. So I'm been told that I'm that strange bird that likes the social media and is a writer and is an editor, and I kind of wear all those hats, which I guess a lot of people don't do all of that, but I enjoy it. Yeah, I would love a traditional publisher to pick up my books, but for me, the self-publishing aspect is something that, with the marketing and the social media, I'm already attuned to, so I don't think that I can actually, I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say. Well, help me out here, guys. I'm drawing a blank. I'm not the one to answer this question authoritatively.
Because you've only done the self-publishing side, and
Yeah.
Pops, you've done a little bit of both. I've only done the traditional publishing side, though I came about that kind of through the back door, so to speak. I had made the decision to self-publish, and I think I had said something about, like, if I didn't want my book to sell, I could self-publish, and so I started looking into that, and through my process of researching that, I contacted my publisher, who was just getting it off the ground at that time. I said, "How are you doing these books?" And he was just starting his publishing company, and he goes, "Let me just publish it for you." And I said, "Well, you talked me into it." He drive a hard bargain, but okay. I like it, and it's a traditional LPC is a traditional publisher, but they've got a non-traditional model. In the sense that they kind of utilize the self-publishing model. But what's great about them is I'm not paying to design the cover for my book, and I'm not having to do it alone. I'm not having to pay an editor out of my own pocket, and I'm not just relying on myself or my friends to do it. I'm getting professional editors, professional book designers. The bargain is on Audible, and the guy who did a fantastic job. You have to hear it.
Yes.
That would not have been possible if I had done it myself, or I would have had to pay a ton of money to get that done professionally, and now I'm out quite a bit of money waiting to recoup it, still relying on myself to market, and that's just not a good solution for me in that regard. I do agree, Pops, when you've been doing it for a number of years and you've got your platform and you've got devoted readership, it's a lot easier to take that step, especially if you've been saving your money. And I just really advocate, if you're going to self-publish, do not sell to the lowest bidder. Get a professional who's going to do a good job and pay them like a professional. And that means you're going to have to save some money. Otherwise, and my wife has read several self-published books, and if it's bad, she never reads the next one. This is true for all readers. If you read a bad book, you're not buying another book by the same author. You won't do it. If you pick up a book and you love it, you're going to buy almost everything that they write. And we're very hot and cold like that. Very rarely do we go, well, I didn't like their first book, but maybe their second one is better. It just rarely happens. And so if you're going to be doing that, you have to understand high risk, high reward, and just kind of take that into consideration. For me, the risk is too high to warrant the reward, and so I like to mitigate my risk by involving professionals who know what they're doing, and that's kind of my take on it. So, yeah, I still have to do it on my own, the marketing, but my publisher does a lot of things. They cut me deals. They let me know about deals. They say, hey, you can do this, you can do that. I'm one email away from getting professional marketing advice from somebody who's really, really good at it. But I've got Molly Jo, so
Thanks.
She's
and I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstood in this. I'm not saying that legacy publishing, traditional publishing, is bad. I've worked with some of the best publishers around, and I've benefited greatly. I've had to endure a few stupid things, but by and large, the old 80-20%, 80-20 rule here, they have done me an enormous favor. The last 2 nonfiction books, which went through Baker Books, editing was magnificent in it. Everything they did, the covers were just fabulous. I could have self-published, but I didn't want to publish history books. I didn't want to self-publish those, and we had a good publisher online, so I thought that was really the way to go, and they did a super job. So we don't want to write the publishing off, but there comes a point if you can't place it, not because it's bad, but because or you just can't get a good enough deal with it. So yeah, it might be good to self-publish, which is, again, we're going to get into a topic that's beyond what we set out to do today. But it can have some benefits, and I do know professional authors who are, but now I understand they're professionals. They've been at this for a long time, so they know the editing, they know everything that goes into it. So they're very experienced people with that. People just starting out, I don't know. And I still think it's best to try to get a regular publisher.
Yeah.
In most cases.
I agree with that. So we have talked about the social aspect of social marketing and a little bit of the social network. We've talked a little bit about the networking part and how you can, I don't know, maybe Molly, you have a little bit more to add about how you network. We've talked about how social networking can get us closer to people, and you use it to contact the New Orleans, what is it, the visitation?
So it's Visit New Orleans.
Visit New Orleans, and so you've gotten a lot of good research from that, etc. How do you find them? Do you just look them up, or are you just hashtagging stuff? Are there rules that we should know about that? Like, how do we effectively network on social networking?
Google is your best friend. If you wanna find something either on Facebook or Twitter or a website online, you go to the search bar on Facebook, the search bar on Twitter, or just regular Google and type what you're looking for. I was looking for New Orleans. I just happened to type New Orleans tourism, and the very first link that came up it's called Visit New Orleans or New Orleans Online. And it had all their links to their Facebook. It was their webpage. It has the links to their Facebook, their Pinterest, their Twitter. So I just clicked in, and it says follow here. Yes, I'm going to follow this. Like this on Facebook. Yes, I'm going to like that. But I also go to the website itself, because once a year they send out these great tourism magazines, print magazines, for come and see us, and here's the food, and here's the features, and here's the parades, and here's the Mardi Gras. So I want that print edition that I can rip apart and put in my story Bible, and I've done that for the last 2 years now. So find them online. Search what you're looking for. Ask your friends. Does anybody know if I need a new? We went down to LA this weekend, and one of my friends was looking for I can't remember, some kind of tea shop or something. So we just Googled it, and we found 5 different hits within our location on Google Maps, and that was a way of, just as an example, if you Google keywords, you can find what you're looking for. But you also want to be careful, because you're going to find what you're not looking for. So you are going to have to do a little hunt and search and make sure that what you're getting is an authentic website, an authentic Facebook page, authentic Twitter. Kind of what you were saying earlier, Aaron, about people that were spamming you and marketing you, and so you just unfriended them, unfollowed, deleted. There's times where it's going to look like a really authentic website, and you're going to find out it's just a fan-based thing, so you want out of that. Just be careful of what you get into, but after a while, it's a lot of fun. And in this day and age, the official sites, like New Orleans, like Zatarain's, who is the great food company from New Orleans, the rice and everything, they interact just as much. They don't want just fans. They want to interact. That's what the social media is, and they get it. And Zatarain's has sent me boxes of food just because they know I'm writing about New Orleans. So, oh, here's some red rice and beans for you to make for dinner. I'm like, well, that's fantastic. Thanks, you know. And you start to interact with these people more and more, and you start to get food on the table, and it's really a fun thing.
That's awesome.
Red beans and rice.
Red beans and rice. I've got jambalaya mix, dirty rice mix. That's my favorite. Yellow rice, red beans and rice. It's just all fantastic.
So walk us through real quick. Just I don't know if you can do this briefly or not, but the hashtag. How is that used properly? What's the best way? Should I be hashtagging like 112 things each tweet? What's the guidelines for hashtagging?
Hashtagging is similar to highlighting something in a book with an old yellow highlighter pen in a textbook. So when you hashtag something, you're calling attention to it, and it makes it a keyword. So when people go online onto Twitter and they search Aaron Gansky, you would put hashtag Aaron Gansky, but you would put it all one word, no spaces. Otherwise, it's just hashtag Aaron. So put hashtag Aaron Gansky, and then anybody who searches Aaron Gansky is going to come up and find that hashtag, whether it's your post, whether you've tagged yourself, whether it's a photo that somebody else tagged for you. Anything with that is going to do that.
Okay.
I see Becky's comment. She says Aaron brought up hashtags. She doesn't understand what to actually hashtag help. Hi, Becky. So, yeah, hashtag is just calling attention, highlighting something, and you don't want to overuse it. You want to use, at the most, they say 2. I generally will use 3 hashtags if they're smaller words. Bigger words, obviously, Twitter has 140 characters, so you don't want to hashtag everything. You want to have room to actually say what you're trying to say. For us as writers, the ones that will really get attention on our post is hashtag MWriting, hashtag MEditing, and that's AMWRITING or AMEDITING. So it is what it is. And
one word.
One word. Hashtag MWriting or hashtag MEditing. And a lot of times I'll put both on there. For tonight with doing this podcast, I did hashtag social media. So, yeah.
Okay, so I've always seen that as AM writing and AM editing, so I thought these are the people who write in the morning and edit in the morning. Like, AM writing makes a lot more sense. That makes more sense to me. I am ridiculous and dumb. Okay.
I think I speak for all of us when I say, oh, brother.
Facepalm. Oh, anyhow.
Hashtag facepalm.
Hashtag facepalm. I do that one a lot. So.
Yeah, that's one that you do use a lot. I think you should use it now.
Yeah. I do want to ask one thing. We're kind of going off our show notes here a little bit. In regards to posting versus commenting, should we also be commenting on people's posts on Facebook? Should we be replying to tweets? Is there a rule for that? Is there a guideline for how often you should do it and what you should respond to, or how do you handle that?
Well, if you post something up and somebody comments on your material, the polite thing, of course, is to respond to them, to let them know, hey, I noticed you noticing me. I appreciate your like, your comment, your follow. Otherwise, what's the point of being social? If you're going to ask all these questions and have all these answers and then just ignore the people that are supporting you, they are not going to want to buy your book. So you definitely want, it's a two-way street. You not only want to start the conversations, but you want to keep it going. And when you see something that other people are posting that you're interested in, yes, you want to comment. You want to start building that dialogue and that social back and forth. But again, you don't want to spam somebody. If it's the first time that you see on a friend's website that, hey, I read this great book or sci-fi or something, you don't, oh, you think that's great? You should read Hand of Adonai. I wrote it 6 months ago or something. You don't want to do that because then that's just obnoxious.
Oops.
I mean,
No.
yeah, we're going to have to go through your Facebook. It's okay. There's this thing called a delete button. It's really, really useful.
I was talking with Cindy Sproles about this, and she mentioned one thing that she had success with was just commenting on, like she'd go through her Facebook feed and just comment on one or two people's posts, anything that had to do with prayer. Somebody who wanted prayer, she would just comment, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you, something like that. Or it's somebody who posts a cat picture, oh, your cat's adorable, thanks for sharing. And it has nothing to do with the writing, nothing to do with that. But when they see your comment on their post, all of a sudden their eyes are now on you. Oh, this person cares about me. So that when you post and say, hey, my book is for sale, they go, oh, that's the person who, you know, prays for me. That's the person who says they like my cat. And she says she's had a lot of great success that way. And that's the social aspect.
It is, and what you want to remember on that is because on your Facebook wall, those are all people that you said, yes, I want to be friends with. Those, even if they're strangers in real life, those are people on your internet feed that you are friends with in the cyber world. And so you want to respond to them. You had told me that about Cindy before, and I really respect her for doing that, and I think it's great.
Absolutely. We are so much running out of time quickly. But we've got two last questions, so I think I'll throw them both at you. I'll just kind of lob them at you real quick and let you kind of answer them. And we started a couple minutes late, so we got a couple minutes on the inside. But first of all, I want to know the practical question. How do we do all of this? This sounds, every time I think about social media, I think that's another full-time job. Is there a way that you can streamline it and make it quicker, A, and then B, who's doing a really good job with social media other than you? Somebody that we can kind of look to and emulate and maybe kind of model our social media presence after.
Well, first of all, Facebook has a great scheduler. What you can do is when you put a post, not on your personal page, but on your public profile page, I'm sorry, not on your personal profile, but the actual pages, the author page, the company pages. When you post something at the bottom, next to post, you'll see a little drop-down arrow, and you click that, and it'll say schedule. So you can schedule it to show anytime in the future. And you could write a post tonight and schedule it to post 5 years from now, I think. Or at least a year from now, but I think I saw one once where it was 5 years from now, and it's absolutely ridiculous that you can do that. Hootsuite is another one, and that's one word. It's Hootsuite, and that's an online. You can use it. I think it's free, or it's $10 for up to 3 profiles pages. I pay $15 a month, and that $15 a month lets me run up to 50 profiles. And when I say 50, I'm talking all different social media. I think I'm running 4 Twitter pages, 4 or 5 Twitter pages, 5 Facebook pages, my LinkedIn, my Instagram, and not just for me, but I also do errands. I do some for the club, for the writers club that we're involved in. And so I'm able to go into Hootsuite, write one post, and select through the drop-down and say I want it posted to Erin's Facebook, to the club Twitter, to my Twitter, and to LinkedIn, or all of them, and hit auto schedule, and it'll schedule it for some time in the future. The great thing with Hootsuite is it runs off of its own dynamics, and it knows what gets the best attention when. So if I schedule the same article to go on either a Facebook or Twitter, it'll post it at different times. It'll post it on Facebook when most of the Facebook audience is going to be there to see it go live, and then a few hours later when Twitter, most of those viewers will see it go live. So you'll see a photo and you'll see it stagger. It's also to keep it, again, with 100% of your audience being in Facebook and or Twitter. If you see something on Facebook at 9 a.m. and then something else at noon on Twitter, then you're keeping it fresh in their mind, and it keeps rotating through the social schedule. But I definitely recommend Hootsuite. Facebook Scheduler is good. It's helpful, but I definitely recommend Hootsuite. As for who to emulate, who should you be like, I really recommend just find websites or blogs that are similar to the ones that you're trying to write, if it's a blog, or even Facebook pages, and hover around, be a voyeur for a couple of days, see what kind of things they post, what they like to do, how they're designed, how they're set up, and start emulating them. I learned a lot of my stuff through trial and error, and then I met Edie Melson at Blue Ridge last year. I took her social media class, and right from the get-go, we got along great before we even met in person. We were friends on Facebook for a couple of months before I met her at Blue Ridge, and it was fantastic because I learned that not only am I doing it the right way, but she also taught me a lot more of how to do things and why I was doing them that way. I think, Aaron, we've talked about that before, where I know what I'm doing works, but I don't know why it works. And Edie was able to sit me down and say, oh, this is why, and explain to me the dynamics of social media that I was already had a grasp on. So it helped me understand that. Definitely, I love emulating Edie. I love taking what she's teaching on social media and then paying it forward and sharing it with other people. I've learned a lot from her. I would definitely recommend anybody. I know Becky Lindsay is writing. Her blog is a Christian-themed blog, and she's a member of Christian Poets and Writers on Facebook. She's a member of that club. I think, Aaron, you are too, on that page.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different posts and blogs that you can look at and say, this is how they do it. And you don't want to be a carbon copy of somebody else. You want to add your own individual elements, but that's where to start, is see who's successful, who does it what you want. Obviously, when I'm writing food posts, I want to go to Food Network or New Orleans Food. If I'm writing something on New Orleans, I don't want to go to Ireland, so I'm going to stick away from Irish blogs, all of those things. You just want to take it piecemeal at a time and put it all together and put it in the blender and see what pours out.
Which could be messy. So, well,
yeah.
Excellent. We had a couple questions come in here from Lorelei, who's joining us tonight. She wants to know what is the best time to post on Facebook, and also what is the best time to post on Twitter. Do you know, is there a particular time of day where Facebook and Twitter see more activity? They're more active, maybe?
Hey, Lorelei. Yes, you want to start with the key hours are the dots on the clock, basically 9 a.m. or between 8:30 and 9 a.m. for Facebook. That's when people are either just before they get to work and clock in, or they're having a coffee break. So between 8:30 and 9 a.m., and it seems to be around 11:30 to noon on Twitter. And then again, the 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock hour, and then the anywhere between 5:30 and 7 in the evening for both of those. That's when people are coming home, they're getting off work, they're going to check their phones real quick, but at the same time, they don't want to be hunkered down. They're walking through the door, they need time with their family first, but you want to have something that's going to pop up on their newsfeed right at the time that they're checking it, so they'll say, oh, this is something I want to come back to later.
I also would say know your audience if you're writing young adult. Think of when your local high school is letting out. Shortly after, you're going to have kids on Twitter and on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
If you're writing Christian fiction, Sunday mornings are probably bad because people are probably in church and not checking Facebook. Though
right.
They might be in church and checking Facebook, but shame on them. We don't know. It might be the minister up in the pulpit checking his Facebook feed. These things happen. But know your audience and know when they're going to be home and what they're going to be doing. And that's one of the things that I would say. And then lastly, here's going to be our last question here. Marie Bast. Hello, Marie. Thanks.
Hi,
Welcome
Marie.
back. She asks, how often do you need to post? Once a week, once a month, somewhere in between? And I think you've already answered that. You said at least 2 to 3 times a week. Am I correct on that?
2 to 3 times a week if it's a blog post. If it's social media like Facebook or Twitter, actually 3 to 4 times a day, every day.
Wait, how many times a day?
3 to 4 times a day, every day.
Okay.
And and it can be repeat stuff like this with the podcast. Tonight I'm going to say, hey, if you missed the podcast live, here it is on YouTube. Then on Thursday, oh, did you miss Tuesday's podcast? Here it is on YouTube. You can repeat the same information, but also mix it up in between. You know, in between there, we're going to have Star Wars, Magic the Gathering, food posts, New Orleans posts, Hand of Adonai, probably one of Al's axioms, whatever, you know, but you want to break up. You don't want to be so stagnant again where it's just they can turn it on like clockwork, like you're an index card and say, oh, it's the podcast again. You want to shock them, kind of give them something to think about, say, oh, that's different. I didn't see that before. So 3 to 4 times a day, every day for Facebook and Twitter. If you can't do that, if Hootsuite doesn't work for you, or if you can't schedule it on Facebook, then at least once a day. Run down your day for your swarm and say, hey, this is what I've experienced today with the writing. These are the great things. And how's your writing going, by the way?
Yeah, and I would recommend even if you're just posting, like scheduling posts on Sunday to go throughout the week, whatever the case may be, make sure that you're at least checking in with social media once or twice a day to where you can maybe make some comments on other people's feeds so that you're still kind of active and making that social connection there. That's what I would recommend. So. And
you want to check back on the comments that other people leave on your feeds. You don't want to let it go a whole week and then be absent and then another whole week go by, and then you don't want to catch up only on Sundays, because then that person may not be able to catch up until Wednesday, in which case now you're looking at 10 days have gone by from the time they posted to when you responded to when they're going to see it, and that is not social.
Not social at all. So.
Not social.
Well, Pops, I didn't mean to cut you out. Did you have anything to add here? I kind of started asking all the questions here.
Yeah, I see how it is.
You told me to get off your lawn.
Hi, Al. How are you, Al?
No, I'm fine. I'm not the social media expert, largely by choice, I'm afraid. It says a lot about me, I suppose.
I know somebody who could do that for you.
Yeah, do you? Oh.
I do.
So no, I think it's been a great program, and she's certainly right about Edie. Edie, most of the time when she goes to speak someplace, it's on social media, and she's also the director of the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference now. So
she's got some really big shoes to fill.
Well, they're about size 11s, so
yeah. So she's taken over your position as the director. So
yeah, she couldn't talk me off the ledge this time.
So well, but you're still going to be there. So good news there. So.
Oh yeah, I'll be teaching there. I just want to hang out with all the writer people.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. Me too.
I'm looking forward to it. So it should be good. Well, that is our cast. Now, next week is a new month. Believe it or not, it feels like February just started. And
wow.
Yeah. So new month, new topic. We're going to be looking at character next week. So we're going to have some real fun stuff to talk about. Really developing your characters. Next week specifically, we'll be looking at the mind and emotion of your character, the invisible parts of your character. So we'll come up with some fancy title and have some great information for you there. We do hope that you will join us next week. And until then, don't forget you can ask the author at aarongansky.com, or you can just reach me on Facebook or Twitter with your question. And you can reach Pops at altongansky.com, Molly Jo at Frankly My Dear Mojo, and you can reach me at aarongansky.com. So we thank you all for listening, and until next week, good writing.